Sup, Chidi?
Good morning. Good morning. It's
Good
it's early.
top of the morning to you, sir. It's a
And I
very
see.
good morning, if I might add.
I mean, you've come dressed for the occasion. What time did your flight land from Japan?
It just did. It just did. I was best out the moment I realized that we were going to win this one. There was
So I
no need
take
to
it you're
stick
happy.
around. Yeah, you know how footballers leave the pitch 70 minutes into the game because they know that, you know what, nothing can happen now.
Talk me
That's
through it.
exactly
'Cause
how this felt.
I'm so TK and I have been messaging backwards and forwards since the race started. However, are you now seeing the second repeat of repeats since the last race? Last year in Suzuka, something happened in the first lap.
It was almost a clean start. I didn't think it would actually happen this way. The moment that they went past 10-1, I actually thought, you know what? We're gone. We're good. We're gone. Everything is going to work out how it should. To
Yep.
be quite honest, I was scared of the first and second position, that Perez and Max competitiveness coming in, because once Max Verstappen goes, that's it. You're not catching him. And I thought Sergio would try and actually attack in the first corner.
I'd see. I wasn't too bothered about that bit of the race. We both know with Suzuka, it's always at the back of the race. So if we play back what happened between Ricardo and Albon, they've had a tough two races. And when you look at the racing incident, one driver wasn't paying attention.
I think that's very unfair. I think you could actually say Danny Ricciardo was actually paying too much attention
To who?
to Stroll, who was on the left. I think it was Stroll.
It was strong.
Yeah.
But what happens to the
So,
driver approaching on the
you
right?
you can clearly see his head turning to the left as he looks in this rearview mirror, and he actually sees that, oh, hang on, there's a car there, and he decides to go for the racing line. Only as he was moving for the racing line, that's when he actually had the contact with Albon. Albon shouldn't have been there.
But it depends whose helmet cam you're watching. Because when you watch the replays on both drivers, you can see two different things happening. When you watch it from Albon's, you can't see Ricardo even moving. You can't see Stroll either. But when you watch it from Ricardo, you can see both drivers.
It was a racing incident. Everyone wants to make sure that they have the best start. It's the first lap. Unfortunately, it happens. I think it's fair to say Danny's going to get penalized for this when it comes to choosing a seat. Albon remains the competitive driver that he is, and he was actually trying to make a move stick and get the best out of the position that he started with. And as for
Albon's
Stroll,
not in danger. Albon's not in danger.
I think we need to look at Albon in a different way, because ever since Albon left Red Bull, the reason why he left Red Bull is because he would not take those chances to overtake. So he's not in danger now, but for the long game, the longer career, he genuinely needs to show that, look, I can be that driver who's gonna take opportunities when they are presented to me. And that's what that means is anytime I can actually get my foot in the door, I am going to make sure that door opens. And these are the results of that.
See, we talked about the driver lineup on the last set of recordings we did. To me, as much as they've called it a racing incident, I think it was a driver under immense pressure and a driver that's trying to secure points against a driver that's not in danger. Stroll's the one that's not in danger. His dad owns a team, so that doesn't matter what he does. He can crash every race. He will never be out the seat. Albon contract expires this year. Daniel Ricciardo has been given a stern talking to, And I remember texting you halfway through saying that chat between Max and Helmet just looks suspicious. And the way they panned to both of them, then zoomed in on Max, you're like, one of the drivers that endangers just crashed. And that's the shot you go to.
I don't think there's nothing to read. It's.
Of course, you'd say, look what you're wearing.
Yeah, you're looking for detail where we don't even need to be looking at detail for. I don't think this affects anything in the long run.
So where is Lawson sitting right now then, after what happened?
Lawson was actually stood right behind Daniel Ricciardo as the race was starting up again after that red flag.
But you know what? Suzuka doesn't disappoint. That's the one thing I'm not gonna lie. Like, Suzuka doesn't disappoint. The first half of the race was a bit meh. I mean, the red flag, half an hour was a lot. However, in that half an hour, it
didn't feel like it.
But it did. You have to think, the race started bang on 6 a.m. It didn't restart till 3 laps in. That's 3 minutes. No, first laps, that's 1 minute 30, give or take.
Yeah.
Then they have to repair it, make sure the drivers are okay. But the second restart, I think when they stopped, everyone went and looked at data, be it 3/4 of a lap's data. A lot of decisions were made then. I didn't see any tyre changes unless you did. I didn't see any tyre changes. What I did see is people thinking strategically about their strategy now, the first 3/4, because the track dropped 1 degree in temperature. At the end of the race, you can see how grained those tyres were.
Yeah.
So do you think the teams went through that little bit of data they got, they knew tyres was going to be an issue?
Tires is always an issue, especially when you have a red flag come out within the first 2 laps, because you have to make those decisive actions right there. This is what tells you whether you're going to be on a 1 pit stop strategy or 2. And as you can see, Mercedes actually attempted. They did think about it. They almost went for it, but then Lewis Hamilton just ended up being a sitting duck, and everyone who had wheels could actually just overtake him.
See, I was going to get to that. I've stressed how much I'm not a fan of his, but I now feel so sorry for him, because this race, through what they did in qualifying, this race for them should have been the day they challenged McLaren. They weren't necessarily going to challenge Red Bull, but I saw him and Russell get past at every given moment. And it got to a point where he was asking, shall I switch positions with George?
That was actually earlier on in the race.
Yeah.
It did not even take the moment that Russell got behind him and Lewis could just tell that, look, I do not have the pace. He offered that position.
But I don't think George had the pace either. George had a different strategy.
Yes. Agreed, but Lewis could actually feel that, look, there is a bit of pressure coming from George, and instead of racing each other, why don't I just let him go? And if that works out, it works out for the team, not necessarily individually. That is the team spirit that you actually need, not the let's battle each other and waste our tires on each other.
But Red Bull do it all the time.
That's Red Bull. And each team has their own reasons for it.
I mean, the other thing, you talk about team strategy. My driver of the day today, for the first time in many races, was Leclerc.
I am not surprised by that at all, Mr. Ferrari.
No. Okay, yes, one, I'm biased. However, you don't see me saying the other Ferrari driver was driver of the day.
Yeah, that's also part of being a Ferrari fan. You are completely oblivious to the fact that Sainz is actually a good driver, and you go for your homegrown guy. That's part of you being a fan.
Not necessarily.
There is bias in there.
I just think if I was looking for a job in the driver market and I knew that I can piss people off, why wouldn't I do it? And I think that's what he did. There's no way Vasseur sat there and told them to switch positions or allow them to race. We all know the internal struggles of Ferrari. No way did that happen. Sainz saw that as, screw you. You've offered my seat to someone else. I want to prove to the rest of the grid why I need a seat. And good on him, because that overtake was sweet. And I didn't see it coming, but he had fresher tires, and the decision to keep Leclerc on medium tires for longer worked till he got into dirty air.
I guess. I could. I don't know, but still, I don't think he deserved driver of the day. He did everything that was expected of him.
What?
It's
which
not a case of
make it to the end.
This is the equivalent of us going to Max Verstappen. Well done, mate. You are driver of the day. You started first. You finished first without actually taking into account that, hang on, you actually did not do anything that any other driver would actually fail to do.
Yeah.
We need to actually reassess how this driver of the day is actually handed out, because I actually think maybe a panel of racing experts should actually analyze everything to do with the race, looking at race overtakes, positions gained, and pit strategy, communication between the drivers and their pit crew, and analyze all that data to actually come up with, hang on, so who really performed the best? Who's the best multitasker of all this? Us putting it.
Gone?
Did this just mute?
Yeah.
Us putting this to everyone watching from home who is voting for different reasons to say, right, you tell us who driver of the day is. I feel like that's very unfair. Do you know who our driver number 2 was for driver of the day?
Wasn't it Sainz?
No, it was our boy Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, but
now you tell me.
He's homegrown. Like, to be fair, this was his race.
Exactly my point.
This was his race.
There were other competitive overtakes and challenges that we saw on track that were actually more than just Yuki driving around. As I was taking notes through the race, I actually do not remember. Shit, this thing is gonna piss me off. What's going on here?
It's just you keep hitting the mute button.
I don't. It's here. It's literally in front of me.
Oh. just keep an eye on it, because we can edit the post. So do not. You say that. You actually say that. There was it's actual facts that Yuki Tsunoda is the first Japanese driver to score points since Kobayashi
at their home Prix race. Home race.
That's.
This. Are you talking about this? This 1 point that we're seeing now,
dude. A point's a point, right? This kid is racing for his life because he's got the manufacturer's backing. The least doesn't matter if it's 1 point or 25. If he scores a point, he's showing his value. Honda get a return in investment on the fact that they're backing this kid.
Someone needs to do an analysis of points to monetary terms so that we know exactly how much this 1 point is worth to the Honda company.
I mean, how many engines have they got? This 1 point's worth nothing. They've got 4 engines on that grid, so they've got 4. They've got 4 times worth of value. He's just one of many. He's the one we support on the grid.
Right. So looking at how our driver classification was for qualifying, we went Verstappen first, Perez second, Norris third, Sainz in fourth, Alonso fifth, Piastri sixth, Hamilton 7, Leclerc 8,
yeah,
Russell 9th, Tsunoda 10, Ricardo 11, a bit lower for someone who's fighting for his seat, right?
Yeah, but he also didn't finish, so he just
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Hülkenberg 12, Bottas, Albon 14, Ocon 15, Stroll 16, 17th we had Gasly, then Magnussen, then our rookie Nicolas Sargent, then Zhou.
Oh, you mean Nicolas Latifi? Latifi the second.
Then Zhou closed off the grid at the end.
Latifi the second.
We might as well call him that. And as soon as the race started, a couple of laps in, we ended up with our 3 DNFs: Dani Ricciardo, Albon, and Zhou at the end after his second pit stop. Very interesting times.
You predicted correct. You predicted correct.
I don't know if I quite did, because I feel like my prediction was actually Verstappen, Norris, then Perez.
Yeah, because I said Verstappen, then I stuck a Ferrari in between. But you were closer than I was, because when I actually look back on the conversation we had last week, it was very much, how is Max going to react? And he reacted really well.
Yeah, and despite the race from the...
He didn't. But as he got into the race, that gap just grew. I've never seen him go into, well, this season anyway, he goes into a pit, he comes out second, and the car behind is still 5 seconds behind. That straight line speed is insane, because that's where he was making up the time. And Perez, being the driver who's kind of suffering as well, he was just making up where he can. So you were correct. I'm not going to take that away from you. You got pole correct.
I think we need something here, and I feel like I need confetti or some board around you so that we know that this. Did you say I was right? This feels like a moment we're living through where you're realizing that I actually know stuff. But anyway, we will move on.
I did not say anything. So the top 3 were as expected. Lando Norris had a harder race. Somehow he was doing brilliantly, and I think that crash affected him slightly. But he fought, and that's where Red Bull and the Ferraris actually showed the resilience that they've got in their cars, because when they were on fresh tires, that car's unstoppable. As the tires degrade, the car becomes a pain. I've got screenshots of Russell complaining about that word we don't like to say, but I think it's coming back, and I think that's what they're gonna use as an excuse, because it sounds like he was talking a lot like the car's porpoising again. It might not. It could be just dragging to the left.
Though. It looked steady throughout the qualifying. I actually thought the car looked pretty alright. Lewis managed it very well.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that it was not fast enough. It was half a second slower, and at some point you can actually hear Lewis talking about where's Verstappen getting this half a second, because Hamilton was, I think, 0.56 behind Max in comparison to everyone else. People tend to forget how fast life moves in Formula One.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah,
because the whole group was bunched within 2 seconds, and 2 seconds is not long. It's literally, if this is where you have driver number 1 to driver number 20 in, these guys are driving at the optimum of racing. This is amazing for everyone to literally just do a track which is 5 kilometers long and get to the end within the same 2 seconds. So it's not a case of Nicolas Sargent is doing bad. He was 1.9 seconds behind Max in qualifying, but it's just a very fine margin.
Experience. Don't you think it's experience now? Because what we're seeing is the more confident drivers are taking risks. By that, I mean Max will always take a risk. Carlos Sainz has reason to take a risk. And I think everyone's kind of waiting for China to happen, for them to show their hand, because no upgrades are due from anyone. And if anyone needs upgrades right now, it's the Mercedes tractor, because that car should not be getting smoke from the Aston Martin. And the Aston Martin arguably it's got a very experienced driver and someone with a silver spoon in their mouth. But even Stroll, for me, he did all right to come up where he did, because at one point he was way back there. He could have just DNF'd and still been fine. But he was fighting for points at one point. I don't even know, did he end up in points?
I can find out. Yeah. Where did he get Stroll? Oh, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, but at some point during the race, he was in points.
Yeah, he didn't get any points.
So how do we see China happening then? Because this race for us is pretty much what we predicted. An early one, but you can now start to see the drivers, again, like I say, they're getting into their motion. They're now getting into a groove. Verstappen is now in cruise control. It's, again, I'm going to say it now, it's probably his season to lose again. Unless he has another brake failure. I'm praying for another brake failure. But unless he has another one and another one, we're not. No one's catching that. No one's catching that car. Checo needs a seat. Sainz needs a seat. Whether or not something will happen, but China will be deciding factor. Because if Verstappen wins China, then he's leading the pack. He was going into the race today unsure whether he'll still be in pole to win the Drivers' Champion. He now is. So
it's at the beginning of the race, I think it's Crofty who happened to mention that we're going into this race and we've got 6 drivers who have the chance of actually winning the championship from here on. And I agree with what you said. I think now we are going to see these drivers take more risk, because silly season started earlier and everyone is trying to make sure that they have a good word for themselves. That reference needs to prove that you can actually make mountains move for you to get seats in the next season.
And I'm kind of, you know what, it'll be sad not to see Sainz on the grid. Also, before 2026 happens, it will be sad not to see Perez in a Red Bull seat.
Nah, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, but he's the perfect number 2 driver. Perfect. You wouldn't be wearing those colours if he wasn't. And to be fair, why are you wearing those colours?
Because I'm a Red Bull racing fan.
No, you're a Max Verstappen fan.
No, actually, no. I am a Red Bull racing fan. I do not care who's sitting in the car. It's, as Christian mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we were going through his fiasco that everyone has forgotten about. It's about the whole unit as a team, not necessarily as our driver is X this year and our driver is X this year.
So if Red Bull bottle it this year, you still support him next year?
I am a Red Bull through and through.
Okay. I'm going to quote you on that when Max goes to Williams.
That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. So, our constructors, how it stands currently, we have Max Verstappen leading with 77 points, Sergio Perez 64 points, then into Leclerc with 59, Mr. Carlos Sainz Jr. with 55 points in 4th, and Norris in... Gonna start that again. I seem to have lost my bearings somewhere in there.
You also said
top 3. I was actually going for constructors.
Yeah, so you should. Well, you said constructors, then you said Carlos. You said Max constructors, Red Bull.
You know what, Chid?
Lack of sleep.
Maybe we should clap here.
Yeah.
Right. I will start that again. Our
Drivers.
Our driver standing currently stands as Max, Sergio Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Oscar, Russell, Alonso, and Hamilton. That makes up the top 10. And 11 is Stroll, Tsunoda, Oli Behrman is in there as well.
Oh yeah, because he scored more points than certain drivers, hasn't he?
Yeah, Oli currently stands at 6 points.
Ouch.
I know. And
that pause was there for dramatic effect, by the way, because there's no reason why an F2 who filled in a race should have scored points and
have 6 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then our constructors, nothing has changed in the constructors. Literally anyone who came in first is still first. That's Red Bull. No bias intended. And the 10th, we still have Alpine standing. Actually, it's not fair for us to say Alpine is last. We've got Williams, Kick Sauber, and Renault. Alpine, Renault. They are the ones with no points at all.
And I think they're going to carry on not getting points, especially Alpine. And don't get me, I like the team. You like their cars, as in you own one of their cars. I like the team. I don't like the driver lineup. I think between the two of them, there's too much ego. There is way too much. We were together when we started, so I'm better than you. Look at where they ended up today. And Ocon is one hell of a driver. Gasly has proven time and time again he gets frustrated too easily. At one point, he was 26 seconds behind the lead. I'm sure he got lapped in that race.
I think we need to make it clear that I do not own a Renault because of my support for the Renault team. I think I practicality is what I went with. I did not go for their racing performance.
Sorry, how many Renaults have you owned?
3, because of practicality.
So you had...
the first one was for racing performance, and then the other 2.
So you had the hairdresser's one, then you had the Badger. Now you have...
That's 1 kid. And then the Koleos is 2 kids. The Renault Kadjar
and the trailer
is for 1 kid. I'm never going to get the trailer. This is it. Anyway, swiftly moving on. Mentioned that the constructors, nothing changes, so we will just see the gap to Red Bull increase between Red Bull and Ferrari. Do you think McLaren are actually going to do anything to improve their pace in the next couple of races?
Let me just look at how the race, so we've got China next in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think McLaren will make big upgrades at the Miami GP. It'll be a home race for them, in theory. Home race for the owner.
It's short-sighted for them to plan it that way.
Well, the car's
if
performing
you can get
fine.
Upgrades in I don't know. I do not feel as if it did anything amazing today.
But it scored points in every race.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're scoring points, it's performing fine.
Norris should have actually been on the podium and done a repeat of last year.
I agree, because he went in the race the one most likely to come second based on the way he qualified. Piastri was always going to give him some hell behind the scenes, which I expected, and I'm glad the kid drove well.
Was Piastri in the race?
He was playing.
He finished 8th, started 6th, finished 8th.
But it was most of the strategy that they were on was always going to push Lando and to get him to slow down the rest of the grid. But to answer your question, if they don't make any the only upgrades they need to make is to make sure at each race they outscore Mercedes. As long as they're doing that, because the cars are very similar, they share engines. So if a Mercedes fan is saying that the W15 is a tractor, what the hell is in the McLaren then? Because ultimately they're similar-ish cars. The only thing that changes the aeros and the shell. The power unit will be very close. There'll be certain differences, and I think Mercedes will do the upgrades at Silverstone, which means if McLaren come in either in America with upgrades or in Canada, it gives them a head start to actually get it ahead. I wouldn't be surprised if McLaren were in the top 5 this year, as in constructors, if they don't push, because Aston Martin are another one that last year, amazing unit. This year, it's taken too long to warm up.
I think McLaren went with qualifying pace based on how they actually ran this race, because Norris started third, lost 2 positions and finished 5th.
Yeah.
Piastri started 6th, also lost 2 positions and went 8th.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I mean, that Norris last year converted this into a podium finish. Instead, during the race, they are losing those positions slowly.
Yeah. Is that,
I guess
would you say that's the car, or is that strategy and tires? I mean, this is where Ben would have been a great help to tell us how terrible his beloved team is doing. I mean, they're not doing terrible, but in our eyes, as 3 people that support very different teams, I think it's tires. I don't even think it's drivers. Drivers are very...
They're up for the job. There is no doubt for that.
Yeah.
Lando and Piastri are up for the job to make sure that they pull that team into the top 3 teams, but it just doesn't materialize in some cases. Unfortunately, if you remember well, as we were looking at the recap of last year, I did mention that I hate this track because it's so complicated, and at one point people are just jumping into the pit, they're jumping out. At some point with 5 or 6 vehicles jumping straight into the pit. I thought it was starting to rain. I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And you lose visibility of who's where and in what grid order, who has pitted, who's on what strategy, and it makes it very complicated to follow. And for me, I class myself as someone who actually can follow the race, and I get to the point where I just think, well, who are you racing and who are you racing? And it's only within the last 10 laps when you actually realize that, okay, this is where everything is falling into place, who is sitting where. That's my problem with this race.
And do you know what? Now you say that, me, you and Ben, we're very analytical when it comes to some of the stats we see. And part of that is because we're fans of the teams and the drivers. But the one thing we can all agree on, bar you, because you're wearing that stupid top, the strategies working in qualifying. But then again, we all forget that there's a 24-hour lapse from qualifying to race. Things change, weather, driver health, things that we don't necessarily see behind us at this end when it's qualifying, and you get to the race and everything just goes downhill. So McLaren needs to pull the socks up. So does Aston Martin. On the same token that we say McLaren are up for the job, and give them another season with the same driver lineup, they will definitely be fighting for top 3. But during the race, I was messaging some of the guys and who are Mercedes fans, Lewis Hamilton fans, and one of them sent me a message back saying, I don't understand why they're bigging us up. They need to concentrate on the race between McLaren and Ferrari. And I was like, oh yeah, like the way they've made it look, like Hamilton moaning first, then the switcheroo, then them picking up, then dropping back, then the pit stops. The Japanese Grand Prix is naturally a one-stop race if you pick the right tire strategy.
You can make it work.
Some of these guys came in 3 times, including the red flag. So we'll discount the red flag, but some of these guys came in too frequently. And again, the race is a lot earlier in the year than it usually is. It usually rains. There was no rain. It was just a hot track. And like I said, if you look at the graining at the end, I think it was Verstappen's car they showed right at the end, those tires were cooked.
Yeah.
Like, those tires were cooked. But he still led by so far.
Oh well. We can talk about this all day. I think we need to wrap this up.
Yeah, we do. So congratulations. I'll say it again. Congratulations. Your energy drinks company is actually recovered off a back of a shambles race. Okay?
I don't think that's fair at all. I think we should actually class it as the energy drinks company is actually kicking car manufacturers.
Just remember to stay an energy drink. I mean, it says it gives you wings, so they've got wings.
Winning against the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren.
That's what we got next. We've got China on the 21st of April.
I see how you ignored that.
No, I'm not rising to you. Like, you've got this way of winding me up sometimes. No, so China's the next race, and I think for us, and I'm only speaking as a Ferrari fan, it's going to be a tough race, because I can only imagine the conversations that have happened behind the scenes after this race. Cars are competitive. One driver was more hungry than the other. That's the only way I can put it. I'm happy, yeah, kind of, that it was a Red Bull 1-2, because that's what you used to seeing. There's no one currently that's going to shift and shake that, unless Verstappen has another problem or Perez has an issue that won't allow him to do anything. Does that make sense? But China will be a big one, because this is the race where Ricard, the honey badger, now fights for a seat. He's crashed the chassis. Williams are running on they're running on the same chassis. So they've got this window to bring back the chassis, build the chassis, send it back. So they've got...
Life is tough for Williams right now. There is no way James Vols is actually having a good time.
Perks of the job.
You might like a challenge. No one ever prays for a challenge like this.
That's not a challenge.
It literally is. Whenever those cars are on track, something is gonna go wrong.
Wow. Do you know what? Now you say that, I actually picture it the other way.
Think. Australia, we had the crash with Surgeon, which resulted in him losing, with Albon, which resulted with him giving his car taking Surgeon's car.
Yep.
Here, in the practice, accident also happens.
Yep.
And the race starts, another accident. Someone needs to actually step in and actually put these guys and actually say, right, guys, we are not in the scrap metal business. We need to make sure that we hold on to all our cars.
And you're right.
Because there is a risk when you're fighting for points. During
massive ones.
During practice, it's unacceptable.
Too right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. This is TK and
TC.
We will be doing.
Let's do that again, because I want to add a bit to the back end. So let's do that again.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. This is TK and
TC
from Lover of Cars and Lover of Tech.
Thank you for watching. Like, share, and tune in between the break for more F1 synopsis like this, because we've got a few. We will find ways to make the 2-week window. It is 2 weeks, isn't it? The 2-week window work
Wow.
to give you some more content. We're going to do some stuff on drivers. We're going to focus on our beloved teams. Keep a lookout on all the socials. So Lover of Cars on TikTok, Lover of Cars on YouTube, and Lover of Cars on Instagram. Thank you so much.